This meeting totally wasn't written and recorded last minute. No. Let's get this meeting to session. Alright, so I've done a collaborative piece before, excluding school, of course. Including school, I've done a ton of collaborative writing. And when I tell you that I hated all of it, every second of it, I mean it. Luckily in school, I always ended up being the one doing all the work, so the only thing I have to deal with is when someone else tries to tell me what to write, and I know for a fact that's a bad idea. But right now, I'll be telling you guys about my experience of collaborative writing outside of school. This was over a year ago. A friend of mine and I wanted to write a book together, and I wanted it to be a book series. But the problem is, our writing styles, types of plotting, how often we write, and a major issue, how we see the world we created. What I'm basically going off of is a Minecraft realm that my friends and I created, and they and I played on it for a few months. A lot of events occurred in that realm, and I wanted to put it all into a novel series because I knew that it would be very interesting and maintain a lot of people's attention. So, he and I were working off of actual, online events. But the primary problem is, I was writing off of the clips and memories I have and recorded, and he wanted to come up with more fictional, out of timeline events. After a bit, I ended up taking over the project, not because he wanted to make things more made up and not from the proper storyline, but because he wrote much slower and less frequently than me. So he and I came to a mutual agreement that I'll just take over the project, which ended up being discontinued because the project ended up bringing up a lot of negative memories of how my friends treated me, and it was really bad for my mental health, so that project is not going to see the light of day. But working with that also helped me learn a few things. For instance, how I'll refuse to work with anyone on a collaborative piece again, especially if it's something as long and in-depth as an 8-book novel series. But on a more helpful side than me just complain about how much I can't stand working with others, here are some tips to help you all work together if you do wish to do something collaborative. Then I will go into the positives and negatives of both, solo and collaborative. 1. Heavily plot out everything from chapter to chapter. Sure, you may be working with someone who doesn't plot or doesn't like sticking to a plot, and that's understandable. After all, it's like being restrained to like rules and guidelines and giving no freedom. But at least try and come to an agreement about how the story should go if it's not chapter to chapter. And if one person has an idea that they think is better, then hear them out and see if it'll work within the story, not create any irregularities like plot holes. Also, by plotting out the story, then the person who writes faster will be able to go on ahead without having to wait for the slower writer to finish their chapter, or worrying about there being issues in the story. 2. Have the person who plots more heavily fill out the plotting document, if you have a plotting document. When my friend and I were writing together, we were both on a video call together and pitching ideas for the world building and character creation. But when I went back and saw that he filled out certain sections with only 1 to 3 words, I ended up having to spend hours going through and fixing them all. So instead, I would suggest having the heavier plotter fill out the plotting documents, while also chatting with their partners about partners about ideas and what to write. 3. Then there's how often everyone writes and how fast. The friend that I worked with ended up telling me after we started writing together that he usually writes about 1 chapter a month, when I put out about 1 a day, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on my productivity levels and if I'm in a writer's block. But the problem with that gap in writing is that I would be finished or near finished a novel by the time he gets out only 2 chapters. So, in terms of what I recommend doing when with someone who works slower slash faster compared to you, I'd recommend focusing more on editing for the faster writing, or even work on another project while you wait for your partner to put out a chapter. Now, I know this may seem rude or excluding tips for slower writers, but all of the tips I have are already overused. Plus, I'm a fast writer, so tips for fast writers is the best I can do. But if you all would really like some tips, here are what I got for the slower writers. Go for a walk when you've hit a block. Try to find time in your schedule to fit in writing. Maybe lay back for a few moments if you feel like you're stuck, and actively think through the plot of the story. Have devices that aren't helpful towards your writing outside of your reach, and using different sites to help you focus, such as Spotify or YouTube to listen to music as you write. The faster paced songs tend to help some people type faster as well. And you can also use studying sites like lifeat.io. They have like studying with BTS, studying with animals, cafe vibes, all that kind of stuff. They even have soft lo-fi playlists as well. Now remember, working with someone is also more of a long-term game, especially if you know that person is a slower writer. So you can't expect to get everything out in less than 3 months, as in like a single novel. I don't mean like an entire series. That's illogical. But yeah, it's collaborative is a long game, and I'm glad I didn't get stuck in it. Anyways, now collaborative versus solo writing. Which is better for you? For collaborative writing, the positives can be half the work depending on how many chapters slash words are separated between the people. Could be a fun thing to do with friends, can help grow connections, and if you enjoy working with others, then you will definitely enjoy talking to and plotting out a story. Now, the negatives can be disagreements will cause tension when hanging out in a friend group and arguments whenever it comes to writing. The gap in writing speed can cause some irritability. Working with someone that goes against the plot or wishes to change up the story entirely will end up causing arguments where both people will be unhappy if one liked the original idea more. It may even be a longer process to write a novel due to the different writing styles and editing. The design of the book itself and what each writer visualizes may be difficult to make decisions when it comes to book cover designing or coming up with a synopsis. Now for solo writing. The positives can be you get complete say over your story, you can write it the way you would like to. Nobody's slowing you down / pressuring you to speed up and putting out worse work. You can take credit for the story and not have to share it. You can work off of your own schedule and not have to stress about it. Now, the negatives can be you have to write the entire thing by yourself and not have that load lightened. You most likely won't have any recommendations from other people, unless of course you reach out and ask for them. Or if people unquestionably give some because they just feel like it. There is a possibility that it will never be completed, which is often seen within the writing community of people just having like 6 different work in progresses and none of them ever being completed. Due to the workload, writer's block / burnout is far more likely as well. Now, and those are a few positives and negatives for both choices of collaborating when writing or going it solo. Do you have any tips for people who are thinking about writing collaboratively? Feel free to answer in the Q&A below if you're on Spotify. Or comment if you're on Instagram, iTunes, YouTube, or any other site that has a commenting feature. Check out my novels, Death, Chill, Flame Rip, and Arctic Blaze on Amazon and Kobo, link in the description. Check out the Creative Writing Club Discord server in the description. Check out the Creative Writing Club Instagram at creativewriting_club. Check out my personal Instagram at dark_night_wolves. And let's all go and try not to rip each other to shreds. I mean, let's work together.